Hey, what's up, guys? So, this is Samuel G, and last time I made a video around here, it was kind of cool, and I thought the lighting was coming out well on the camera, and since it's gonna be really cold really soon, I decided to come back and shoot another episode for my Ways to Play series. Also, I want to say thank you to Runeslinger, who gave me a shout out, on the social network about this series. Producing a video himself, talking about the importance of making a distinction between how we play and what we play. So, obviously, this series has been about that, and this principle today is another installment of this idea of, not just style. I mean, it's not about style, it's about principles, right? So what I've been sharing here is not what I think is the best way to play, not what you should play, or not the solution for all RPG problems. It is some of the principles that I like, that I prefer, and I just want to share. And these are the solution that I utilized, or that I found worked best with the problem I encounter, right? So obviously it's we're talking about game and play, so it's always going to be a matter of preferences and taste and all that. So yeah, now this one today is about shared narration. So obviously, I mean, if you look down the line, these principles are all about collaboration. Do you want a collaborative storytelling experience, a collaborative role-playing experience, or not, right? And so they are all triggered and driven by that. So don't look any further. This one is about shared narrative, and I will call it GM narrates failure, player narrates successes. And so it's really easy. This one I didn't find anywhere. I didn't read it anywhere. I mean, it's not in any games I've seen. The closest I've seen that is similar to that, I got is, I don't remember exactly. I think a good example would be maybe like some Power by the Apocalypse games. Some games out there, I have no example in mind, but what they do is that they actually made rules. So they created a framework for who narrates and when. And so it's like, some games are really discreet and precise about that, like player begin narration after roll, GM finishes, or GM begins narration after rolls, and player finishes it. Some stuff like that, and it's really interesting, and some people actually look over that. So before I keep going, I just want to give a big shout out to my friend Mathieu. So Mathieu, l'autre fois qu'on jouait ensemble, tu m'as fait réaliser quelque chose. C'était l'idée que beaucoup des principes là, que je parle dans ma playlist ici, je les ai développés avec toi là, en jouant à Burning Wheel. Fait que voilà, je te donne un shout-out parce que c'est comme ça qu'on joue dans le fond. C'est toi et moi, dans le fond, c'est comme fait une synthèse de comment on joue ça. Alright, tranche de vie. So yes, so basically, my friend Mathieu and I, we used to play a lot, together, like 3 times a week, Burning Wheel for like a year and a half. And some of the principles here come from that experience of play that we kind of came up with, So Burning Wheel never talks about that. It doesn't advocate that. Burning Wheel is really basic, actually. It's just like it's supposed to be the GM who does pretty much everything. If you read it by the rules, black on white, the GM pretty much do everything, in a lot of aspects of the game. So this principle that I'm talking about here is, the main issue that I was encountering, about this one is, the player skill versus character skills, or I want to do something, the GM tells me roll this skill of yours, and then I roll, and then the GM narrates everything. So the player basically just roll the dice according to what's on the sheet, and the GM ends up narrating everything. This is super boring, right? So this idea is to share the workload. So you give the player half of the narration, because the dice are they're gonna roll pretty much half and half depending on the game, right? So when you give narrative freedom and power to the player when they succeed, it makes all kind of sense, right? So it's like they want to do something, they ask for it, and so they will tell you what happened. They will describe how the character does it according to what they have on their sheet. And so it's kind of like basic. And when they fail, they give that opportunity to the GM, to bring the pain, to make something interesting out of it. And if you mix that principle with failing forward, it becomes a really good combination for a lot of interesting stuff happening. But you need, as a GM, to be able to give that freedom to the player when they succeed. So they take over narration, they describe what happened, and then you kind of need to do a little dance with the player in order to bring back narration and keep going with the NPCs and everything and the scenery. That's all. And so this principle is really important for me. It makes a big difference. When I'm a player, I don't want nobody telling me what happens with my character. I want to tell you what I do, how I do it, why I do it. I don't want you to tell me what I know. I don't want you to tell me how I feel. I don't want you to tell me what I understand or not, what I remember neither. My memories, it's not for the GM to tell. So this principle here allows for play like that. And what's really interesting is that there's not a lot of game that stipulate about that. So this principle works with every game who doesn't have a rule to framework dice and narration. So all the games that doesn't tell you who narrates and when, that principles apply. If the game has a specific rule about who start and who finish narration and all that, you cannot, because the game, if you want to play the game by the rules, if you want to play raw, you cannot apply that, because the game actually designed it. They already tell you what to do with that. So if you want to play raw, you play it by design, and if there's rule already there, actually all the games who has rule to framework narration and dice roll, it's always rules about who narrates. GM first, player before, or whatever. It's like, so they already do it. They do it their own way, but they already do it. So all these old school games, like D&D, the old D&D or Boot Hill or Traveler or whatever, all these old school games, traditional games, they have no rule for that. So this principle is always there. This is so good. It is so good because it forces the player to work. It forces the player to actually, think about it. Have some kind of a reflection. And so some of the issues about player skills and character skills. If the responsibility is on the player now, to narrate his successes. You know, you kind of have to know about the skills he's doing. So you're not so I play, you know, when in your social contract, if you play that way, you're not gonna start you're not gonna bring a character to the table as a player who's a, I don't know, let's say he's a biologist, right? You're not gonna bring such a character to the table as a player in a group with such a social contract if you don't like biology, because you're gonna be approaching everything as a biologist, right? Because you know now you're gonna have to narrate biology stuff. So you know all the idea about these knowledge check, you know, and you know, player skills, character skills, and all that is gone by the window now, because this principle actually tells you, like, you will have to bullshit, narrate stuff, invent stuff, you know. But again, if you look at this principle, just like some of the others, since the dice is, you never know how they're gonna fall. So you don't know in advance if you're gonna narrate or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, dices are random, you know. So again, improv, when it's a failure, you look at the GM as a player and you're like, oh shit, what are you gonna do to me? But when you succeed, you're like, oh yes, let me grab that story now and bring it somewhere. But you don't know that in advance, either as a GM, neither as a player. So prep doesn't really, you know, happen anyway again. So this principle is really good. So first, it creates a true collaboration, because I would say a third or maybe a half of the narration is gonna be expressed and dictated by the players, and because of the successes in the roles. And then in the social contract, when such a thing happens, you know, when you have that principle in play, everybody knows that they're gonna have to deliver you know, a certain kind of performance. So it takes the workload out of the GM, so it actually you know, make this a session breathe more, and everybody's on the edge all the time. One thing I've noticed with this, nobody sleeps. Nobody go away and get cold, and then when it's their turn, they have no idea or stuff like that. It's like, since, you know, you kind of always have to be prepared and ready to talk. So it creates this really nice environment, you know, about that. Another thing, so I don't know. I mean, in terms of issues, because all these principles are there to solve some issues. You know, all these bad players issues, like, you know, players who doesn't talk, players who are there to be entertained, you know, bad players who are like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like these people looking at their phone and all this kind of stuff. I mean, when you bring such a principle to play, and like I say, I mean, again, this principle applies to maybe, I would say, 80% of RPGs, because there's always going to be these weird RPGs where they have like specific rules about that, and sometimes they don't even have a success failure dynamic in them. But all the other ones, I mean, this one applies. So what it kind of do and creates is just it gives a really good solid foundation for true shared narration and collaboration. You know, because this responsibility is split in two, and this is where it's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like that moment where the dice fall. You know, Obviously, a principle like that, you roll the dice open. I mean, it should have been my first principle. I mean, the dice are rolled open all the time. I hope we are on that same the basic first principle should have been roll the dice open. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, thank you for watching. This one is important, and I strongly recommend it. For me, it kind of leveled everyone around the table. Like, everybody has a responsibility for entertainment at the table now with that principle, because it's not just I roll and I say you got it or you don't. It's not just like that. It's really like everybody looks at you as like, so what's up about that, right? So you wanted X, now tell us about X. And so it goes for knowledge checks as well, right? So this is the thing, like, if you have like some knowledge skills about the world or perception, and you want to see something, you want to look for something, and you roll that perception check, and by rolling that perception check, you succeed. And well, now it's on you to tell the group about that, right? It's on you to tell the group about that. It's really important. So for me, it's all about that. It's about this idea of taking responsibility as a player, as a fellow gamer in an RPG group, right? Because you are kind of like holding the torch. But the thing is that if you need also as well, like, are you ready as a GM or as a fellow player to give that chance, that responsibility to your players, to be like, okay, so you want to make an history check, or you want to make some kind of a knowledge check thing? You succeed, you tell us, you create lore. Are you ready? Are we ready? Like, that is the inspiration that Burning Wheel provided. Even though it's not written as a rule or as a principle in Burning Wheel, some of the skills, they are actually used like that, where the players say, I want to know X, Y, Z. So he created exactly what he wanted to know. Then he rolls to be able to bring it to reality as truth, through his character, through his narration. So yeah, so that's what I'm saying. All right, talk to you soon. But GM narrates failure, player narrates successes.